the pain that her passing brings. My mother was born on June 25th, 1947 in Worthington, Ohio. However, occasionally her birth date would change, depending on if someone asked her her age. When I turned 40, Sarah, my daughter, was quite confused because Nana, Nancy, was only 39, and therefore, how could her mom be turning 40? To help with the confusion, I had to tell Sarah the real story of Nana's age. My mother thought this story was funny, so she continued to say that she was only 39. Most of my mother's youth was spent in the home. Most of my mother's youth was spent in the home that my grandfather built, which was in Whitehall, Ohio. He often bragged about the fact that she had 4 brothers, whom she loved dearly. She frequently told stories about her brothers being protective of her and how much she enjoyed being the only girl. She often said that she received her training to argue and fight through her brothers. Many of you probably remember that my mother always loved a good argument. While being the only girl in the family, my mother sometimes resented the fact that my grandmother made her stay in the house and learn how to cook, while her brothers fixed cars and hung out with their friends. Later in life, I believe that she grew to appreciate these skills. Cooking truly became a blessing for my mother because it was a form of love that she was able to give to those who surrounded her. She was able to show her love for you through her cooking. And if she invited you over for dinner, you never told her no. 1, because you never wanted to argue with her or make her mad, and 2, because you knew you were going to get a great meal. My mother always cooked as if there was an army coming over to eat. She didn't know how to cook in small quantities, and she never cooked from a recipe. It was always a little of this and a little of that, and somehow it always turned out incredible. I will definitely miss my mother's cooking. My mom was only 68 when she passed away in her sleep on Thursday, May 19th at her home in Pickerington, Ohio. Dealing and coming to terms with the death of a loved one is one of the hardest obstacles that we face here on earth. It's hard to say goodbye to someone whom you have loved and cared for so deeply your whole life. But I believe that we all knew she was ready to move on, and so did God. It was time for her struggles to be over and her pain to be gone. My mother was diagnosed with COPD about 15 years ago. The last part of her life was lost to her illness. And while I wish that things could have been different for her, I believe that because of her diagnosis and chronic illness, God gave us the blessing of many sweet moments of tenderness, love, and joy, which I will be forever grateful for. As many of you know, my mother loved to shop, buy clothes, buy makeup, and get dressed up no matter where she went. Even if she was going to the grocery store, she was always photo ready, as she liked to call it. As she grew ill, she could no longer put on makeup, shop for clothes, or become photo ready. It became very interesting to me, though, that with her illness, she only grew more beautiful to me. Despite her sickness, pain, and suffering, she had this beautiful ray of light that shined brightly from her soul. I often said to her, "Young lady, how can you be so sick and yet so beautiful all at the same time?" She would smile and roll her eyes like she was famous for, but I truly meant what I said to her. She glowed like a sweet angel to me. My mother loved for people to tell her that she was beautiful, and I'm not saying that to be mean or hateful. I'm saying that because I don't think she truly thought she was beautiful. Like many of us, she had some insecurities, and unfortunately, I think that was one of them. Sometimes when she would get down on herself about not being able to get photo ready because she was so sick, I would just remind her of what Dick Wallace said to me about 20 years ago, and I quote, "Heather, you're cute and all, but you will never be as good looking as your mother." She would giggle and smile, and it would make us both feel better. Now looking back and reflecting on things, it wasn't the makeup, the clothes, the fancy jewelry, or the Jaguar that she drove, which she loved to drive because she got a lot of attention from that one. In the end, I finally realized that it was my mother's warm and loving heart that we all saw shining through her that made her so beautiful. In fact, some of my youngest memories and fondest memories of my mother was when I was able to watch her amazing heart in action. I can remember when I was about 4 years old, we were at the Big Bear grocery store in Whitehall, and we were all standing in the checkout lane, and I distinctly remember the older gray-haired man behind us holding fruit and a roll of paper towels. While we had a huge cart of groceries that could feed an army, my mother sweetly said to the man, "Please go ahead of us. I see you only have a few items." The man nodded with a smile and thanked her, and he placed his items down on the counter. Just a few moments after that, the man fell to the ground and began to have a seizure in front of us. The majority of the customers moved away, while the other customers just stared as the man lay shaking on the ground. I became a scared little 4-year-old girl, but not my mother. She became brave, big-hearted, and selfless. She knelt down beside the man as his body began to shake. She grabbed his hand and looked him in the eye, smiled and said, "Everything is going to be okay." She gently turned the man's body to the side so that he would not choke on his own fluids. She held his hand and waited until his body had stopped shaking and the medics arrived. The medics did what they needed to do, and the gentleman turned out to be okay. When it was finally over, the gentleman stood up and walked over to my mother and thanked her for her brave, caring, and sweet disposition with him. From that moment on, I knew my mother was a superhero in my 4-year-old eyes. My mother loved to go to the movies, and if she had extra money left over at the end of the month, she would treat us all to a movie. We were allowed to get 1 box of candy and 1 box of popcorn. I can remember one particular hot summer day when my mother took us to the movie. We got our candy, our popcorn, shared a drink, watched the movie. Well, the movie had finished, and as we were walking out of the movie theater, we overheard some adults making fun of another adult for being severely overweight. These adults were teasing and taunting this woman horribly. My mom quietly leaned down and whispered into our ears and said, "That's not right. You should never make fun of a person for the way they look. God loves you no matter what." Well, just as she finishes saying this to us, a loud scream cries out ahead of us. My mom quickly grabs our hands and runs to the front of the crowd. The overweight woman had fallen off the curb and broke her ankle. The immature adults were still taunting and making fun of this poor woman as she laid helplessly in the gravel parking lot. Well, as you probably know, this kind of stuff does not sit well with my mother. My mom was a fighter, and she was not afraid to say something or stand up for what she believed in, and this situation was no different. My mother marched her Fanny and her fiery personality over to those 5 adults and gave them a piece of her mind. By the time my mother was finished with them, she had them crying and apologizing to the woman laying in the parking lot. My mother did not tolerate that kind of behavior from anyone. It didn't matter if she knew you or not. If you were in the wrong, she was going to tell you about it, whether you wanted to hear it or not. After the immature adults left, my mother sat next to the woman as they waited for the medics. The helpless woman cried tears of embarrassment, and my mother cried along her side with tears of sorrow for her. They sat holding hands in the gravel parking lot, waiting for the medics to arrive. The woman cried and thanked my mom over and over. My mother just smiled and nodded. Once again, my mother's heart shined through, and my mom truly was a superhero to me. During these last 2 years of sickness, my mom really struggled and fought for every breath that she took. She never complained, never cried, and never felt sorry for herself. In fact, she often told me if I was going to cry around her, then I needed to leave. Well, I thought that was kind of rude in my mind, but she didn't want that kind of help, and she certainly didn't want you to feel sorry for her. Reflecting and looking back on the situation, I now realize that she was teaching me to be brave in a time of weakness, to stand tall in unfamiliar territory, and to stand strong when the world around you is crumbling. She told me on multiple occasions that there was no time to cry. It is what it is. There is only time to fight, and if you shower yourself with tears of sorrow, you will never, ever win the fight. And I thought to myself, wow, how can this woman be so sick and yet so strong all at the same time? Just as I thought on the other occasions, how can this woman be so sick and yet so beautiful all at the same time? You see, there was a driving force that led my mother every day. The driving force was her faith. She was not willing to give up for 1 second. Her faith was quiet, resilient, and could stand up to anything. She didn't need to talk about it to anyone, and she certainly didn't need to explain it to anyone. She believed it, and that was all that mattered. Her faith was stronger than any sickness or disease that could overtake her body. She knew that her final destination was going to be a beautiful place, and she was ready to meet her Maker. And in her eyes, there was absolutely nothing to feel sorry about that. Today, we honor and give thanks to a woman who stood up for what she believed in, who gave strength when there was no strength to be found, who gave wisdom when there was no wisdom to be given, and who had more heart than anyone else I have ever met in my life. On May 19th, I believe that the gates of heaven opened up, and Peter said to my mother, "Welcome, Nancy. We have been awaiting your arrival. You have done a wonderful job here on earth. Your family and friends are to the left, your superhero angel wings are to the right, and your glass of Chardonnay is straight ahead." While we all know that she is at peace and that her struggles are over, there is pain and sadness in many of our hearts today. Let me be the first to remind you that my mother did not want you to feel sorry for her, and she certainly did not want you to cry for her. So if there is anything to be learned from Nancy's life, it would be the following. Love your family, love your friends, look your best, even at the grocery store, drink your Chardonnay every night, stand up for what you believe in, treat others the way you want to be treated, be brave in times of weakness, stand tall in unfamiliar territory, stand strong when the world around you is crumbling, and most of all, have faith that God is real and alive, and one day we will soon see each other again.